Well, welcome everybody. Carrie and I are very excited about this workshop, and this all came out in the Feldenkrais teachers group. We were planning this coming conference that's happening in Seattle, and we thought it would be a great idea to do some public presentations. And then people were talking about, well, yeah, but how do you do that? And so Carrie and I were talking, we're like, well, we'll teach a workshop on how to do public talks, because it's one of the best ways to get your practice going. So it's a wonderful way to build clients for ATM class. It's a wonderful way to bring in new blood into your practice. Just a great way to meet people. And it's a wonderful way to fill your retreats and workshops.
Just to get the word out into the community.
Yeah. So that's why we're giving this, and we also wanted to promote the conference, so hopefully some of you will be jazzed to try to do a public talk, and we're going to recommend that you get with another practitioner, maybe a senior practitioner who's done talks before or just has more experience, and team teach a public talk. So that was our vision, especially for the conference. So we've got some time to do this, and it's also a great way to get your practice going a lot faster. All right, so we're going to start this workshop as a model for how you would give a public talk. And we know each other somewhat. Some of you I have just met for the first time tonight, and all of you out there on Zoom, welcome. And this is so exciting. It's the first time I've done a Zoom workshop.
And I'm way more of a Luddite than Annie is, so I'm feeling very technologically something. I don't know.
So, camera a little bit. Can you swivel just to show our lovely display table that Carrie and I brought of all our products?
Yeehaw!
So when you do a public workshop, it's a really great idea to bring anything you've got. There's the Guild has brochures. We have CDs that we've made. Carrie has her class flyers, our business cards, sign-up sheets for your email lists, for workshop lists, and
sometimes also articles. Like a couple times I'll put a couple real simple articles out for people.
So all of you guys on Zoom, I just wanted you to get a sense of, this is typically what we do for any kind of public talk. You absolutely want people to leave with more than just your business card. You want some kind of information so they can articulate what your talk was about. Okay, so we're going to start now, and we're going to model what we would do in a public talk, and we're going to start with introductions. Okay, so it's kind of like what we just did with you, and it's going to be modeled, but we're not going to do a public talk, but we're going to do a talk on how to give a public talk in the very same way we give a public talk. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, Carrie, you go first. Introduce yourself.
So hi everybody, thanks for coming, and really excited to see some couple faces I know and a lot of new people that I've never met before, and it's awesome that you're here. My name's Carrie Lafferty, and I'm a physical therapist and a certified Feldenkrais practitioner. Actually, I'll rephrase that. I'm a Guild certified Feldenkrais practitioner, which has some importance, and I am a master Qigong teacher. And I'm here with my colleague and dear friend Annie Thoe to help you learn a little bit and become experienced tonight in a first dive into what is the Feldenkrais method. And we're excited to be here.
Let's move 2 inches that way so we're centered. There we go. Just for those people there. So my name's Annie Thoe, and I also am a Feldenkrais practitioner and Guild certified. And I'm also a massage therapist, but I'm not a practicing massage therapist. I only do Feldenkrais work. But I have a lot of tricks that I've learned from that profession. And I've had a long history of working with injury work with people. That's probably my main specialty. I work with kids too. And I use a lot of nature work in my work. There's a lot of modalities that have brought awareness to the work I do as Carrie. Carrie's just this amazing Qigong person. Yeah. So
thank you.
She has a lot of the energy work background as well. So, and we have worked together for almost 15 years, collaborating and trading our little secrets back and forth. So we're excited to share our work with you.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And one thing I really appreciate about Annie is that she's a go-getter. She's out there on the cutting edge of, she's our tech guru for this. And with Garth, who's helping us. So she is out there making her own imprint on this work, as each one of us does in the Feldenkrais method. You'll really find that there's really only one person that did that work, and that was Moshe, and the rest of us are doing our version of it that's really informed by the really deep awareness principles of Moshe and his work.
Great, thanks. All right, so when you give a talk, so it's kind of strange because we're going to be sort of modeling giving a talk, but we're going to talk about your objectives of how to give the most dynamic, selling yourself, getting people revved to sign up for lessons, to sign up for classes. So I'm going to talk about incentives for the public and basic things of how to plan a workshop, and feel free, Carrie, to join in. So a lot of these people, some of them you may have met, but some, like if you give a library talk or something like that, these may be complete strangers who don't know what Feldenkrais is, And
Right.
I had this one client, she was telling me this funny story about Feldenkrais, and she said, I was telling this one at the gym, and she thought I kept asking her, have you found Christ? And so this woman kept running away from her because she thought, she was
I usually
crazy.
say Feldenkrais rhymes with rice.
Oh, good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. So anyhow, these people might be strangers. So anything you can do to make them comfortable. And one of the things is food. We brought food. Food is good. Food, everybody relates to food. So you mentioned you're going to have a break with food. People will at least stay until that point.
Right.
And really make sure you have something decent to offer. I'm serious. It really makes a difference. Don't have a workshop without food.
Yeah, and it's important because the food time is the time where people will come up to you and will ask you questions. And those are the people almost always that invariably are the ones that are going to sign up for a lesson or something, because they connect with you a little bit more one-to-one with eye contact. And they often they don't want to ask their question in the public.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Karen?
You have a question.
Are you taking questions?
Yeah,
Well, just go ahead.
go
Quickly.
ahead. Quick.
So even at the library, you'll move it forward.
Yeah, bring little snacks. I mean, all we did was bring little snacks, right? They're finger food, nuts, fruit,
Yeah.
chips. Yeah.
And because we're in Vicky's space here, it's not crumbly food. So we brought tidy finger food. But sometimes at other places I might bring the crumbly stuff just because it's sometimes better.
But that's where community happens, is around food.
Yeah. All right. So I mentioned the table over there. Maybe now you can scan it even closer. You can twirl the.
Want me to just carry the computer?
No, just turn it. That's cool. That's cool. So one of the things about having flyers and stuff is it gives some people something to do beforehand, because people are shy, and then sometimes people talk to each other while they're looking at things. So it's really nice. You might even have a poster of something that you bring in. And I just can't stress that enough. I didn't bring coupons, but that's another thing in starting your practice. 2 for 1, or bring 2 people, you're going to get half off. Those kinds of things. Great way to start, or for classes.
And mark it as a discount, special price, for tonight only, or for this month or whatever, because people are into a deal. Everybody knows that, right?
All right. Okay, so the first question with planning your workshop is, who is your audience? Okay, are you going to just do a general public talk at the library, which actually I've done lots of those and they're fabulous. It's a great way to get clients, or are you going to tailor your talk to a certain group?
Small group of people.
And at the conference, we have right now, there's 3 groups. Right, Vicki? See if I can remember. So we've got healthcare area, so health, fitness, that kind of thing. Second group is performance arts, dancers, etc. And the third group is conscious space, meditation, yoga, that kind of stuff. So those are 3 groups. There's lots more groups. Okay, you might choose the Mountaineers as your group that you want to give a public talk to, which I have. That's a great group.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Qigong teacher, so, you know, working in and out of martial arts studios, or, you know, I'm also a physical therapist, so I've done many, many, many talks in the medical field, and not just other PTs, but to nurses, to nursing home staff, you know, so it's like, where's your niche? What do you know something about? If you're a runner, you know, call your local running group. You know, if you're a biker, call your local biking group.
What is
or
your passion?
Rowing group? Yeah.
Start with what your passions are first. Believe it or not, I gave a public talk to a book club.
Really?
Yeah, and I got clients from it.
My friend
I
Annie.
totally did, and they were wealthy clients, so they were, you know, that was a good one. They came back a lot, but you know, it was totally fun. They had great food and wine and all this stuff. So there's these crazy things that you wouldn't even consider giving a talk to. And maybe it's a small group and you think, is it worth my time? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Too small.
No, I had once for the garbage collectors. That was cool. And I got a great job out of that one.
I remember Larry
ATMs with the garbage people.
I remember Larry Goldfarb saying that he had done a group class to bus drivers. And, you know, he got all kinds of FI out of that.
And don't be shy. You could I've done lunch hour things at corporate places, and they're looking for this kind of thing. I mean, Microsoft, whatever. I mean, you could pick the big guys, but you could pick small people, small businesses, small people, and they love it. Yeah. So if it's, maybe you want to work with kids and do something in a school setting, whatever. Okay. So sky's the limit. Start brainstorming where your passions are and go. Okay, now, I forgot to mention, please turn off your cell phones if you have them on.
Yes.
That's just a good thing in front of the beginning of the workshop is try to mention it right away, but just to remind people, because it's so irritating when somebody's phone rings, distracts everybody.
Yeah.
And you can really, if you're nervous, if you haven't done a lot of public speaking, that can throw off your game. And you also don't want to embarrass the person whose phone went off, because they're going to want to leave and talk on the phone, and you know, they're so embarrassed. So good idea. Just make sure you get in the habit of that. Okay. So the next thing to mention is, come on in, time management. As one of our participants comes in, I say time management. So it's tricky to start a talk on time, because there are people that get stuck in traffic or just come late because they didn't get the time right, or whatever. But try to start on time. And there's a lot of techniques to start on time. And we tried today. We had a little technical difficulty. We did pretty good. And it was really our incentive to be on time, because we value the time of the people that came here, and we want to make sure we stay on time. So time management is an art. It's an art form. And one of my rules is, it's called a 50-50 rule. And I learned this from the Wilderness Awareness School. It's a brilliant teaching strategy. And it is that you have all this material that you collect that you want to teach, but you highlight the big points that you feel like these are the ones I've got to get to, all right, to feel like I've gotten the nuggets out there. And everything else is just frosting, okay? If you get to it, great. If not, there's more workshops. You can add those stories later. So the 50-50 rule is really great, because a lot of times we get so nervous that we're not going to get through our whole outline. And the audience feels that. They can feel like, oh my God, is it going to be okay? But with 50-50 rule, you're just enjoying that you know these main points are being addressed.
Yeah, so what I think what you're saying, Annie, is that you're willing to let 50% of your big story go, and the 50% that you've highlighted are kind of the nuggets, and the other 50% might be a further in-depth subtle study that you're willing to let go in order to cover a bigger nugget. You might even speak, boy, there's more in-depth we could go to on these, and that would be something that we could cover in a future time.
And we have so much material tonight.
We won't
This
get
could
through
be a
it all.
10-hour talk.
Right.
So we aren't going to do that to you.
10?
Easy,
Okay.
easy. We could go on and on with stories. Okay, but we are going to start with a little ATM right now. So we want to get things going as fast as we can for people to connect to why they're here. All right. Sometimes I'll ask people, is that your job? Engagement.
All right.
That's yours. I won't go there. But we're going to go right into a sensory moment. Okay. So put your pens and pencils down.
And the reason why it's so important to start really early on with experiential work is because we all know, every single one of us here, now I'm talking to you guys as Feldenkrais practitioners, is that this stuff is not easy to talk about. Like, nobody needs to tell us that, right? So the more that you go on and you're explaining it, you just get the glass-eyed look, right? We've all seen it. And so the more that you can drop into an experiential moment and then come back with some of the points and some of the principles, then it gives people something, at least some place that it can land inside of them in some embodied way, even if they don't really understand it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you know, there's a million different lessons we could choose for a public talk. And something that's accessible, that's usually in sitting, because most strangers do not feel safe lying down with strangers next to them. Not a good idea. I really don't recommend putting anybody on the floor ever in a public talk unless they are already Feldenkrais practitioners. Just not a good idea. So sitting is preferable, and sitting, there's some great simple ATMs to do sitting. I'm sure you could think of some right off the bat. I recommend finding your bones immediately, kind of like your ripcord. The most emergent thing we can do is to find the bones. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. People are sitting all different ways. That's a constraint for you as a teacher, because if they're not all in chairs, some are on the floor, then the sitting thing is a little difficult because we can't do the same ATM. So I'm not going to do a sitting ATM with you, but I bet you can think of some to do, right?
Yeah,
Do
absolutely.
you want to add anything before I go? Because we've got this.
No, I think it's good. Yeah.
Okay. I might even do 2 ATMs. I might do a really short one and then like a 5-minute one. Okay. So I'm going to do a short one right now. All right. And we're going to do a hand one. Okay. So everybody knows the one where you interlace your hands one way, right? And interlace your hands the other way. Okay. That is not always that impressive to people who haven't done a lot of ATM. It can be, okay, but it's not always the most impressive thing. So anyway, let's start with rubbing your hands. So wake up the nerves. Let's take a few breaths. And sometimes I talk during the ATM because I want to direct people's minds to what we're doing. So I'll say, are your hands getting warmer? Might take just a second, or are they already hot? Is this about as hot as they get? Are they getting sore? Do your fingers interlace when you do this, or are they just touching together? Okay, now stop. How many times in the day do you do this movement? Have you thought about it? Like, how many times have you done this today? You haven't washed your hands?
Except for every time you wash your hands, right?
I do mine.
Yep.
Okay, so here is one of the most habitual things we do is washing of hands, right? And what an opportunity to bring awareness to your hands, okay? Now, So your hands are connected to your heart. They connect your two halves of your brain. There's a lot we know in neuroscience. There's a lot we know in East Indian medicine about the hands with all the mudras and so forth. So this is powerful. When you bring your attention to your hands and you start to feel more of the activity, you can actually increase the connection between the two hemispheres of your brain. Now, here's one of the most habitual things we do. Hopefully you wash your hands a few times during the day. Not Nancy, but I do, and hopefully you do after you see clients, okay? But anyhow, what I'd like you to do now is I want you to press and see which hand do you press more with when you rub. Press more with one hand, and it probably is your dominant hand, right? Probably is the dominant hand. So press harder with one hand. Just press, so one hand's pushing the other. Okay, stop for a second. That part of the brain. Okay, now let's try the other side. So other hand. I find it's my dominant hand if I press harder naturally. So now it's my non-dominant hand for me. Rest. Typically, when you wash your hands, I'm guessing one hand's pressing harder than the other. And you may think this is no big deal, but if you change this little tiny habit, something magical happens, all right? So let's see. My hands are really getting warm.
Mine are too.
Let's try the backs of your hands now. And try not to catch your fingernails. Can you get all the fingers, all the backs of your fingers? Have you ever tried to wash your hands this way? Next time you're showering, how far up can you go? And which hand is dominant here? Is it the same? And rest. Can you think of another option? What would be another way to wash your hands? This way. Good one. This is like monkey see. Okay, now somebody change it. Somebody change it, and then let's see if the whole group can follow. Who's going to change it? Somebody change.
What if one was to go back to front?
Like that. Okay. It's hard to see. Can you see if somebody changes it? Somebody's changing. Uh-oh. You got this one. This is a fun game to play with kids, okay? This is a really great kid game. We used to play this game in Wilderness Awareness School, and you'd have to pay attention. Somebody would make a change, and then everybody would follow. But feel the effects of that now, okay? Your hands should be feeling maybe a different size than they were when we started. Are they getting bigger, smaller, fatter, thicker?
And can I add to this, ATM?
Yeah.
A tiny little bit. And possibly also notice that maybe you also have a different sense of how you even just sit on your stool or your seat. Just notice if there's some more space that's available to you in some kind of way. Just the creativity of these new different ways of doing the same action. Just notice what might also show up. This is one of the principles of Feldenkrais, is this innovative creativity that comes up from being able to study a different way of doing the same old activity.
All right, and now let's just close by putting your hands together and feel the contact of the two hands. And see if it feels a little more even. Maybe in the beginning we didn't sense the difference in the two. But if you press with one hand into the other, So it goes to one side, and just feel that ability to go side to side, or up and down. Are your hands softer? Do they have more contact with each other? All right, good. So
Awesome.
that's the little bit of a lesson here.
Awesome.
What do I want to say? I think that's pretty good.
Good.
Do you have anything to add? I might resume since we're just a few minutes.
No, I think that Annie's given a really creative example of an ATM that engages people's curiosity, the public. It's a creative way of having people say, huh, there really could be more than one way of doing this kind of same old thing. And that's the important thing, is to help people become curious in their own body, as we know as Feldenkrais practitioners, but to let them recognize, like, this actually has them actually feel differently and move through the world in a different way. And that's what we're trying to get across in an introduction talk to people, so that they have some inner sense, and then you can talk about those principles. I think it's important to intersperse in some of the principles as you teach the ATM, so that people have an experiential sense, and then some kind of a cognitive or an intellectual leading in of what the principles are.
Right on.
Okay, great. So just one other comment about time management, as we were talking about this 50-50 rule that Annie has. I think it's really important that we make sure that when we do a public talk, and in general, when we do a talk with people or a group, you have a way of making sure that you are you're the guide, right? You're leading the show in a way, because you never know what kind of questions you're going to get. A lot of times in the public, you get people that are coming because of pain, and they're very, they want to tell their story, and it's usually very lengthy. Starts when they were 11 years old and they fell off their bike, right? And they're 72 now. And so, there's a way that you want to make sure that you're in the driver's seat, and that you are guiding that and holding that in a kind way. And sometimes that means that if people are coming up and asking a lot of questions inside of it, is that you may need to say something like, your question is only, we only have time right now for a couple, 2 or 3 minutes, or I need to have you shorten this now, so that we have enough time to offer questions for other people. And I'm happy to talk to you later about that. I'm happy to have a conversation with you or offer another way, so that the person feels that there's a way of an outlet for them to get their question answered, but that it doesn't derail you. Because it's very easy to get derailed, and then all of a sudden you've spent 15 minutes trying to answer somebody's question inside of a public workshop. So it's just one other thing about time management.
Can I add?
Absolutely.
So also, if you don't know the answer, it's totally great to say, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'll look that up, and send me an email or something like that. Totally respectable to not know everything, and feel okay about that, especially if you're a newer practitioner. Be kind to yourself. You don't know everything.
Yeah.
I don't know everything, and just stuff you don't know, you don't know. And you can also say, to the best of my knowledge, or something like that, to qualify something that you're not sure of. That's okay, but that's helpful, just so you don't stress out about having to know everything about Feldenkrais. Oh my gosh, who does? Only Moshe. So, but about your own experience, and that's what you want to speak from. Your experience, how this has changed your life, why you're so passionate, you're in this profession that people can barely pronounce. And I make little jokes about that, and how it's so amazing, and that I've been doing it all these years, and and that's the kind of engagement that people, that's why they came.
So as we are in our public workshop right now, we've made some overall introductions. We've had a bit of a sensory experience. We've brought a little bit of some basic 1 or 2 principles into the teaching through the sensory experience. We've navigated what we've had to, if there's questions that have shown up already, to kind of stay to our 50-50, where are our nuggets? What are the other things that we want to make sure we're including in a public workshop? We want to make sure that we're, at least in Annie and my experience, this is what we have found that's been helpful, that we're including both a little bit of a ATM-ish experience, maybe 1 or 2, like Annie suggested. And we also have felt that if you do a little brief FI experience, but again, it needs to be experiential and then interwoven with some principles. At this point, in a workshop, I find that it's important to make sure that you're drawing a corollary to who you are more personally, so that people know who you are. You did this brief little introduction. My name's Carrie. I'm a practitioner, I'm a PT, I'm a Qigong teacher. But here, you want to offer a couple of personal stories. Simple, short, you don't do the, when I was 11 years old, I first fell and then blah, 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 right? But a simple story. So for me, it's something like, I was a PT for 3 years, and everybody that was coming to me in the course of those 3 years, they kept coming back for the same kind of injury. And it was like I'd see somebody, and then 6 months later I'd see him for the same kind of knee injury, and then 6 months later I'd see him for a shoulder injury. And I got introduced to Feldenkrais through another PT. And in PT school, I had a 1-page handout that said Feldenkrais was coordination exercises. I didn't know what that meant. I went to PT school in 1985. And so I began to research it, and it was like, wow, this stuff, it landed in me in a way that really made sense for the already way that my mind was drawn to interconnection of the body and to holistic kinds of ways of thinking. And that's what drew me to Feldenkrais. And that's what still keeps me very, very much engaged in this work today. And for me, it's interwoven with my study of Chinese medicine and my study of Qigong, that the core practices of really knowing how to pay attention in my felt sense body help me in my own life, and help me to be able to be that container and hold that for other people. So for me, this is a deeply personal thing. It's helped me personally in my own life, and it is an offering that I feel is really of my my path in this world. So something that's personal, so that people connect to you,
So each person here, you can kind of reflect, like, what made you do a training? How did you get to that point where you plunked all that money down and spent all that time? What motivated you? Where is the passion? And giving public talks actually is a good thing to do sometimes when you're feeling insecure about your work, because it actually reignites that passion about why you're doing this stuff and what you're most interested in, what's unique about you with this work. So anyway, it's pretty cool.
I'm going to refer to my notes, which means I have to put my glasses on. And so it's like, this kind of thing is fine to do. I've been a practitioner for, 30 some years. And it's like, it's fine to just be humble and say,
check
look,
your notes.
I'm going to check my notes, right? And just make sure.
And by
I'm
the
not
way,
forgetting anything.
especially for the Zoomers, kind of like the boomers, the Zoomers out there, we will send you our notes. Okay.
Right.
And these notes are how to give this talk tonight, but it'll give you all the fine points of what we're talking about and more. We haven't said every word on these things. So
right. So basically, it's a good time to insert this. So this is for the Feldenkrais people, right? Is that we are going to give you 2 different handouts. And what Annie and I did in coming up with this is we have this 2-page handout of all these important points that we feel that need to be done inside of a public talk. and we even spoke about this. It's like, we don't need to teach people how to do ATM. You guys all know how to do ATM. You all are going to come up with your own interesting ATM.
Yeah, but keep it brief.
But keep it
Not too
brief,
long.
right? And so we have a handout that has these main points to cover. And then there's a sample outline of a public workshop. So you'll get both of those. The Zoom people will get them by email. The people here will have them by paper. And if you want an email copy, you can also have it.
And my website has a link of all kinds of short 5-minute ATMs that if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I highly recommend that you do, because those ATMs all could be used for public workshops. They're fantastic. A lot of them came from my public talks, you know, the introductory talks. I would use these short little ATMs. So those videos, I made them for clients too, but that's a great resource if you're looking for a short, snappy ATM to give for a public talk. And we wrote some down on this outline too that you can use as a idea generator.
So at this point, I'm going to suggest that we do another brief little ATM.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that you'll have another little 5-minute ATM experience. And as we've said before, Annie and I, we have lots of similarities in our worldviews and what we find important and kind of how we've interwoven some of the work, other works that we do with Feldenkrais work, and we're very, very different in that. And each one of you out there, Zoom and everywhere here, you're going to put your own signature, put your own words on your teaching, and that people are going to recognize that. They see that. So with that, I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. Or I might say something in the workshop that would be, you know, awareness through movement. That's this process that we're doing. It's one of the arms of Feldenkrais work. And just if you just look at those 3 words, awareness through movement. The subject of that sentence is awareness, right? It's not about movement. It's about moving in order to become more aware of how it is that you move. So there's all kinds of different positions we can do awareness through movement in. So Annie did one earlier in sitting, and I'm going to do a little bit of a test movement. We all know what that means in Feldenkrais. A test movement in standing, do a movement in sitting, and then do come back to that test movement so that people have a different kind of a way of having their experience and seeing what kind of meaning or sense they make out of that. So if you're comfortable, close your eyes. If you're not, you can keep your eyes open. Either way, just take a moment and just feel your feet on the floor. That's an interesting thing, to just sense the contact of your feet on the floor. It's like if you had ink on your feet, you're standing on paper, you'd be making a footprint. Just sense that. And just put your hands on your hips. People say, I'm going to put my hands on my hips. This is actually the top of your pelvis. People call this their hips, but it's actually an anatomical bone called your pelvis. And so here's your pelvis, and let your arms back down. And then bring your hand to your tailbone, the back of your pelvis. And put your hand on your tailbone. It's low down, below your waist quite a bit. And then let your hand rest. And then gently, without trying to see how far you can move, this is a principle in Feldenkrais, is that we actually do less than we're capable of doing. And that's in order for us to feel how it is that we move. So doing way less than you're capable of doing, just bend over and just move towards your toes. Just bend over and you'll just see how easy you do that. And just notice how you do it. And feel where your tailbone goes as you do that. You just sense it. And then come back up. And do it again. And the second time is in order to see if you can pick out something different. So sense if there's a different kind of part of yourself that you pay attention. So you're noticing maybe how far your arms go, but you're also noticing just the smoothness of the movement, whether you tend to put more weight on one leg, and where your tail goes. And then come back and sit down. So I'm going to teach this ATM that is geared towards people that are sitting in chairs. Okay, so it can be modified for people that are sitting on the floor. Okay, those of you that are in this physical room, that are sitting on the floor, extend your legs out away from you. So, and you're not trying to lengthen your knees as you're not trying to stretch your hamstrings or anything, right? So you're not lengthening them out and stretching. For those of you that are sitting in chairs, bring your feet underneath of you. So if it was a public talk at a library, highly likely that most people are going to be sitting in chairs. So that's why I'm doing this ATM. Close your eyes again if you're comfortable. And we want to interweave in principles while we're doing experiential teaching so that people can understand some of the principles of Feldenkrais, but they can embody them directly into an ATM. So what we just did in standing was notice something about your body parts, where your pelvis is, how the weight is, how you do this very functional movement of bending over. And now we're going to pay attention that if we study from a different position, some of the relationships about how that happens, then actually standing up and doing the regular function that we just did might be different. So let's explore that. So very gently, with both hands, begin to slide your hands down your right leg. Then you're not trying to see how far you can go. And just begin like if you were a Martian, or if you were something that didn't know what a human body was, you just began to explore this part of you. You could think of it almost like a massage, but yet sense and feel as you do that, not just feel your hands on your leg, but notice that there's a relationship, that your pelvis moves when your hands move down your leg. And there's a way your head moves. It's very interesting that in Feldenkrais, we're paying attention to how we do what we do, not just what we do. Yeah? And so notice again, as you do it a few times, just sense, do you get heavier on your right side of your pelvis or your left side? And then come and sit and rest. Now take both hands and take one hand down each leg. And do the same thing. And as you do this, begin to pay attention to where does your tailbone go? How does your tailbone move in space as your hands go down your leg? The next time you're down there, just stay in a comfortable place and a little bit turn your head right and left and sense that you can shift your weight from one sitting bone to the other, one side of your pelvis to the other. Leave your hands there and then come back up and rest for a second. Close your eyes. And just feel yourself in the room and just feel what kinds of possible thoughts and curiosities and wonderings might be present for you right now in just sensing how you sit. And then in a gentle, smooth way, come back up to standing. And just sense how you do that. Just sense how your pelvis moves, how the relationships of parts move through space in order for you to get an action done. This is what we're learning in Feldenkrais. And sense the contact on your feet. Put your hands on your top of your pelvis again, and just sense where your pelvis is. Maybe you feel that in a different way. Maybe you don't. It's fine either way. Let your arms down. And now begin to bend in the direction of the floor again. You're not trying to see how far you can go, and just feel. If you do that differently now, Maybe that means you go farther. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it means that there's a quality of movement change that feels more smooth or more easy. This is the focus that we're learning through Feldenkrais. Is through ease and fluidity, we actually learn to feel how to move in a different way. There's another little ATM example.
All right, so it's time to take a little break, and on the break, I am going to have a slide. It's not a real break for you guys, but I'm going to have a slideshow playing of a public talk to get a sense of higher tech. If you're going to use PowerPoint or Keynote is what I've got, because I use a Macintosh, and I spent an inordinate amount of time on the slideshow, like probably 60 hours, ridiculous amount of time. But I did a lot of research and I tried to get photos that work. So I'll have that playing
It's
on the break.
It's over the top awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's way more than you need to do. Usually a public talk is like this. I don't have slideshow and stuff, but it's so nice if you want to make a more professional presentation to people. It's nice when you have, it's really easy to do. It's, well, easy. It's not that hard to do. And
I'm going to clarify that.
And
it's not easy to do.
no, and I've created one now. You can model it after that if you want to do something like that. But anyway, I'm sharing it with you. And Nancy says the Guild's working on one that people will have access to. So anyhow.
And where can we see the slideshow they're going to watch?
I'll have it on the computer playing, so you can watch it here.
Or is it on YouTube? Is it on your website?
No, I don't have it anywhere other than on my computer. But I'll be playing it during the break. And also, this is what I would say in any public workshop. Break time, besides having great food and conversation with each other, is a time to look at our great products. So we have a sale tonight, and those of you on Zoom, the sale, I have my first edition CDs on sale, ridiculously cheap, $25 a piece for 6 to 8 lessons, full length ATM lessons. And then if you want to get the whole series, it's $120 for the entire 6 set CDs. It's like 40 hours of ATM. And then Carrie?
And Annie has way more of a volume of work than I do. So I have a 6 CD set, and it's a reduced price. And the other important thing to say, $70. The other, and you can also buy an MP3 version on my website.
You can write us, email us if you want to find out more information, all of you Zoom people, and we'll let you know, and the people here, we can chat. But
and the other important thing you have to make sure that you note, I mean, it's obvious to all of us, but we do have to state it, is you need to tell people where the bathrooms are, right? So the bathrooms are down the hall to the left, and
Okay, so during the break, we're going to see a demonstration of a slideshow that I made for public talks. I have a longer slideshow, which is what we're starting with. And this is designed for me to be talking along with the slides to an audience that basically does not have much knowledge of the Feldenkrais method. On the upper right corner of the screen, you'll see my picture and video, and I'm voicing over that right now because it was pretty loud. And just looking at a brief overview of the method, and also showing you using photos, some that I've taken, some that I've gotten from the Guild, and then some that I've gotten off the internet. So you'll want to be careful of any photos that you do borrow on slideshows like this. And also, if you have clients, make sure you get permission to use their photo in your slideshows. It's very important. And I spent a lot of time just trying to find talking points that were short, quick to read. So when you make a slideshow, you don't want too many words on the page. Keep it simple, short little bites of information for people. And then there's fancy things you can do with timing so that words are put on in little increments. And that takes some skill and practice, but it does engage more because people tend to fall asleep when you start a slideshow. So you want to be very engaging, telling stories, giving examples in addition to the slides. Don't just let the slides do all the work for you. Make sure you are animated when you're giving a slideshow. I'm not going to talk too long during this demonstration. This is something I was showing during our break at the workshop, but just to give you an idea of a public slideshow that I've put together, and feel free to draw from this. And I also have another slideshow that you can look at that's very much abbreviated. I didn't put the whole slideshow on here, but this took somewhere between 60 hours of time compiling all this, so it takes a while. So anyway, this will go on for another maybe 5 minutes, and if you want to skip ahead to the end you can, but this is basically just for your benefit to see a different way to do a public talk. All right. Is that okay?
Okay, go back the other way. Reach behind you. Reach for a mic with the right hand. No, don't look behind. Lie down. There you go. Reach back. Whoa, take your leg with you. Take your leg. Oh my goodness. Fabulous. That's awesome.
My CP client is a really exciting story. I usually tell a story with this one. One is, let's see if it shows. So this talk is quite in depth compared to my normal public talk. This is a really longer and more in depth. So that's the that's the longer slideshow, and I have another one as well. Let's see, hang on. I'm not sure where they here. So this is my other slideshow. I have two, and you can see one's shorter than the other. So this is a new share. Just a second. This was a different talk, okay? So I've tailored it differently. But you can see some of the same slides. Same slides. Just to give you a different sense. It's a much shorter slideshow. I adapted it. And that's I don't know if Jean, she's not watching, but that's one of our local practitioners on the left with one of my advanced trainings, but it's such a beautiful slide. It's just too noisy with this microphone, probably. So you saw all those. It's a shorter talk. So you can see, I'll just go really quickly through this. One of the things when you do when you do a fancy talk, you got to be careful about these timed sequences. It takes a lot longer. So I had a little movie of a developmental child, and we saw that one before. So anyway, I'm going to take a little break now. We'll resume pretty soon. I'll leave this on, but I'm going to turn the mic.
Okay, so in the second slideshow, it's shorter, but I do have some of these video clips, and I just want you to know I don't have them very long. These clips, they're anywhere from, a minute to possibly 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm also talking while the video is going on, trying to explain what's happening. So I have this video from Ruthie Alon that I really like, that is a nice video demonstrating the work, demonstrating the resilience of the method. And I'm just showing a very short clip of it right here, but I actually show the whole 5 minutes of this video in my slideshow. But right now I've just got a little clip just to give you a sense of how I can incorporate video in a slideshow. All right, so we'll continue with the next part of the workshop. In a moment, you'll need to upload that video.